Whether it was genocide, world war, or crimes against humanity on an unimaginable scale, Adolf Hitler's name is forever stained as one of history's darkest villains, responsible for the deaths of millions and unimaginable suffering. But believe it or not, he wasn't bad all the time, just 99% of it.
Simple yes or no answer. Hitler, good guy, bad guy?
That's a tough. Well, there are no good and bad guys. They're just people.
Well, that's not true, dude.
It is true.
I mean,
Despite the horror, Hitler actually created policies that were economic, technological, even cultural that still echo in our world today. Welcome to Peak Visibility, where we pull back the curtain on the darker side of Hitler's regime and uncover the strange, often shocking ways his legacy still shapes us. Now, don't get me wrong, unlike Nick, I wouldn't say Hitler's a good person. He murdered 6 million Jews, ignited a global war, and left devastation in his wake. But amid the horror, he sometimes paused to focus on what he loved and what would help him hold power. And bizarrely, some of those choices led to surprisingly positive changes.
But if we look at him as a product of his time in that moment, we have to judge him with those things in mind. That's all.
So while Hitler never set out to do good, some of his actions ended up having lasting benefits. Sometimes even Hitler needs a little good PR. So where do we start? Surprisingly, with animals. Because in the middle of one of history's greatest atrocities, Hitler also created some of the most progressive animal protection laws of the 20th century. Yes, the same man who caused untold human suffering had a deep, almost obsessive love for animals, something few would have believed possible. You see, it's pretty well known that Hitler was a vegetarian, and this wasn't just for his health. Because for most of his life, he was rarely seen without a German shepherd by his side. He had a genuine, almost real connection to animals, especially dogs. But it didn't stop there. Hitler had an oddly deep and emotional affection for animals of all kinds. I know, it sounds insane that the same guy who was committing genocide on a massive scale was also out here trying to make sure no one boiled a lobster alive. Hitler was ensuring the welfare and protection of animals with a series of animal rights acts that extended across his tenure as Nazi leader. Almost immediately after becoming chancellor in 1933, Hitler and the Nazi Party passed some of the strictest animal welfare laws in the world at that time. One of the first was the Reich Animal Protection Act, which banned many forms of animal mistreatment, including unnecessary pain, cruel handling, and using animals for public entertainment. Under Nazi rule, the punishment for violating these laws could be incredibly severe, even life in a concentration camp. His regime issued extensive regulations around hunting, habitat protection, and the treatment of domesticated pets. It seemed like no animal, from wolves to lobsters, was too small to deserve protection. But even this compassion was complicated. Some of the animal laws also had ulterior motives, like the ban on kosher slaughtering, which directly targeted Jewish religious practices. And eventually, Jews were even forbidden from owning pets at all. Their animals were confiscated, and many were killed, stripping away yet another piece of life from Jewish people. It's important to know that even though Hitler loved animals, his hate for Jews still reigned higher. But Hitler's obsession with control, order, and national image didn't stop at animals. It extended to nearly every part of German life, including how people traveled. Just as he wanted to engineer the ideal society, he also wanted to engineer the ideal infrastructure. And that's where the Autobahn comes in. Now, to be clear, he didn't invent it. The first plans of the Autobahn actually came before the Nazis, but Hitler saw its potential as the perfect propaganda tool, a symbol of Nazi efficiency, unity, and power. The construction of the highway created jobs, millions of them, and during a time when the country was crawling out of economic depression, that was a big deal. It offered the illusion of progress, unity, and rebirth. Workers laid mile after mile of pavement, believing they were building the future, and in a way they were. But beneath the surface of this grand project was a darker blueprint, because Hitler wasn't just thinking about commuters, he was thinking about power. His vision for the Autobahn was deeply tied to militarization. He wanted roads that would allow German tanks, weapons, and troops to move quickly and efficiently across the country in preparation for war. These highways were designed with military logistics in mind, not just civilian travel. The wide, straight roads were perfect for war machines, and certain sections even doubled as makeshift airstrips during World War II. While it was promoted as a peaceful infrastructure project, Its true function was as much about domination as it was about transportation. Still, despite that, the Autobahn's legacy is undoubtedly influential. In the decades that followed, nations across the world took notes. The United States even modeled its interstate highway system after the Autobahn. So, in the short term, the Autobahn helped revive the German economy, instill national pride, and give the appearance of a modern, forward-thinking regime. In the long term, it laid the groundwork for how modern governments think about roads, not just as a way to get from point A to point B, but as a strategic tool for economic control and national security. In that sense, the roads Hitler built are still being driven on, figuratively and literally, nearly a century later. But what good is a highway without cars to drive on it? Enter the Volkswagen, known as the people's car. Just as the Autobahn was meant to showcase German progress and unity, the creation of a mass-produced, affordable car was part of Hitler's broader vision of engineering a modern, mobile, and obedient society.
The Volkswagen engine is cooled by air. Can't freeze in winter or boil over in summer. The Volkswagen engine's in the rear. You go in mud or snow. The Volkswagen cuts most gas bills in half. Ever wish you owned a Volkswagen?
The idea of the Volkswagen was simple. Create an affordable, reliable car that the average German worker could buy, something that would symbolize national pride and social progress. Hitler hired an engineer to design the vehicle in 1934, and the result was the now iconic Volkswagen Beetle. It was compact, efficient, and easy to produce, an ideal machine for the Nazis' vision of a modern, mobile working class. At first, even with the car being heavily marketed, early production was limited due to the outbreak of World War II. After the war, though, the Volkswagen Beetle became one of the best-selling cars of all time, not just in Germany, but globally. By the 60s and 70s, the Beetle had exploded in popularity across Europe, North America, Latin America, and even parts of Asia and Africa, becoming the best-selling car of all time by 1972. Today, the Volkswagen Group has grown into one of the largest car manufacturers in the world, owning major brands like Audi, Porsche, Lamborghini, and even Bentley. Modern Volkswagens are still known for their engineering efficiency, clean design, and affordability. While the original Beetle was officially discontinued in 2019, its influence lives on in automotive design, branding, and the very idea of what a people's car should be. From a propaganda tool to a global economic success, the Volkswagen story is proof that even something born from authoritarian roots can be reshaped into something that serves society on a much broader, more democratic scale. So, what do we take away from all this? That Hitler was a good guy? Absolutely not. Let's be clear. No number of highways, animal rights laws, or affordable cars will ever outweigh the crimes he committed against humanity. But what this shows us is that even the worst people in history sometimes made decisions that led to long-term benefits, whether they meant to or not. But it's not about giving Hitler credit. It's about understanding how power works, how propaganda sells, and how some of the things we benefit from today have roots in places we'd rather not look. History isn't always black and white. It's complicated, messy, and full of contradictions.